When we've reviewed the Common Core, we feel like it's a nice foundation, a place to start, but we think that we need to exceed those standards and do something, ask our students to do something more than that.
So we've been talking about the ways to transform education in the United States. 3 particular ways. 1, professional pay. 2, universal school choice. And now the third, a curriculum for the 21st century. And I'm here with the superintendent of Douglas County Schools in Colorado, Liz Fagen. So the third pillar of what you've been doing in Colorado is this idea of a curriculum for the 21st century. What does that look like? What does it mean to your community, and how are you implementing that?
So a big conversation in education right now is what is it that students need to know and be able to do to be successful in the 21st century? We know that the memorization of textbooks that I engaged in, and you probably did in school, is not necessarily all-encompassing of the skills that our students are going to need. And so we've done a lot of research and worked with experts on this topic and realized that we need to build a curriculum for the 21st century. We need to identify the knowledge and skills that kids need so that they can compete with anybody in the world. And what we've done is we've taken the Common Core standards, which is a big conversation in the world today. Yeah. And we looked at those for academic rigor and cognitive complexity, and basically said, look, do the Common Core standards ask students to think at a higher level, or do they ask students to think at a lower level? And what we found, if you have this scale, the majority of the Common Core standards are in the bottom half of the scale, lower academic complexity and rigor. And so we didn't feel that that was appropriate for our students in Douglas County. We really believe our kids are future leaders in this world, and we want them to be the best prepared possible. So our teachers came together, literally hundreds of teachers came together, and they looked at these standards, they started integrating them, and then raising the rigor of the standards up so that they are requiring students to use higher order thinking skills, that they are cognitively complex instead of being just compare and contrast 2 novels. We want students to actually identify how an author has strategically created meaning in works of fiction and nonfiction. So we moved them up into a higher rigor. And then obviously if you're going to have these more rigorous outcomes, you have to have assessments that measure them. So again, hundreds of teachers coming together, building assessments that will measure these new outcomes for our students. And so we can report out to our community on how we're doing. We've integrated all the 21st century skills into this work. So we're asking our students to be collaborators, critical thinkers, creative, innovators, and we're going to report out eventually to our parents on all of the outcomes as well as the 21st century skills.
And does that include technological skills?
Well, we embed technology as a tool, basically seeing it as something that is our students just naturally know and bring with them anyway.
Sure.
And so we don't necessarily, teach technology as an outcome. We actually integrate it more as a tool and encourage our students to demonstrate their learning on these higher order things via technology.
What about the technological literacy of the teachers? Are you seeing that is something that's important in Douglas County? Because obviously in some schools, teachers are less technology native than the students they teach.
Right, that's exactly true. But the good news is that because our students are what we call digital natives,
yep.
And our teachers are, for the most part, digital immigrants, that kind of makes teachers nervous, like, well, I have to learn all these skills in order to teach these kids, but the reality is they don't. Instead, they can be a coach for the students and say, I need you to demonstrate your proficiency on these things, and you can use whatever technology you feel comfortable with. And they do. The students use it. The teachers don't have to know how to use Windows Movie Maker in order to let the students use it. So we've encouraged our students and teachers to go ahead and use those tools, but not force the teachers to know all the ins and outs of every one.
Are there any metrics to judge the success of this new curriculum that you've implemented?
Well, we haven't actually got the assessment system built. I mean, this is only our really 3rd year of this work. Okay. And so we wrote all new curriculum, we're building all new assessments, we're putting it all together. It's very rigorous for our teachers. They have a new evaluation system, a new pay system. I mean, it's all at the same time. So we don't have the assessment system we want yet, but on the traditional measures of ACT and our state test and all those kind of things, our students' achievement continues to go up every year.
So you mentioned Common Core a second ago, and obviously it's in the national dialogue, and a lot of parents and teachers and educators are concerned about it. What are your thoughts on Common Core?
Well, after reviewing the Common Core standards, I think that they're definitely an improvement from what most students in a lot of districts, a lot of states have experienced with state standards or other standards that have been out there. So, yes, they're an improvement, but my position is that they're insufficient. They didn't go far enough, that they don't actually ask our students to do enough to be fully prepared for the 21st century. That I don't think it's enough to just be able to compare and contrast two pieces of literature. I think that's a step on the journey, but I definitely don't think that's the destination. So when we've reviewed the Common Core, we feel like it's a nice foundation, a place to start, but we think that we need to exceed those standards and do something, ask our students to do something more than that.
So you completely basically put this thing aside and said, we're going to rebuild the curriculum for Douglas County.
We absolutely use the Colorado standards and the Common Core as what we call the floor. And a joke we have is Common Core is the common floor. So that we said, you know, this is a great foundation. There are many smart people that work together to build these standards, and that's fantastic. Now, let's have teachers who work with students every day review these standards, put together standards that make sense to be taught that way.
For your specific community.
For my particular community. I mean, so long in education we've taught things in isolation and not together. And what we know from brain science is that's not the way that the brain connects things, and you actually don't retain that knowledge very long. So we want things to be taught together in natural, integrative ways, and we want them to be taught at a higher level. We want to ask kids to evaluate and to innovate and create with the knowledge, with the skills, not just to regurgitate it.
Thank you, Liz Fagen, for joining us today. To learn more about what's going on in Douglas County, Colorado, you can go to their website or download their app.